These are the absolute first signs you have won against a narcissist. There's a quiet power that comes over you the moment you realize the narcissist no longer controls you. It doesn't arrive with fanfare. There's no applause, no marching band, no certificate of survival. In fact, it often comes during your most ordinary moments when you're brushing your teeth, or walking your dog, or watching the sunlight filter through the window. And suddenly you feel it. You're not afraid anymore. Not afraid of their silence. Not afraid of their rage. Not afraid of what they might think, say, or do. That's the first sign. A whisper of freedom in your chest where there used to be dread. The absence of fear is your first proof that you've already begun to win. But let's be honest, if you've ever been entangled with a narcissist, you know how long the battle feels. Not just externally, but internally. You wrestle with your worth. You question your perception. You tried to love them into healing. And when that didn't work, you blamed yourself for not being enough. Winning against a narcissist isn't about getting back at them. It's not about revenge. It's about release. It's about reclaiming the parts of you they tried to distort. Your voice, your value, your reality. In this video, we're going to explore the subtle yet powerful signs that indicate you begun to win, not because they changed, but because you did. Because narcissists don't change. But you can evolve so far beyond their reach that their old tactics stop working altogether. And that's what terrifies them most. We'll explore the moments when their manipulation fails. The signs that you're no longer emotionally available to their games. The shifts in your body, your mindset, your boundaries that signal the truth. You've broken the trauma bond. Not all at once, not overnight, but undeniably. You may still feel pain. You may still grieve what never was. But you're no longer hooked. No longer stuck in the loop of reaction and regret. And that is victory. So stay with me. Whether you've gone no contact, are still untangling yourself, or just beginning to see things clearly, this video is for you. Because winning doesn't always look like walking away. Sometimes it starts when you stop explaining yourself. Sometimes it begins when you finally sleep through the night. Sometimes it shows up in your nervous system before it reaches your mind. But once you know what to look for, you'll realize you've been winning longer than you thought. Let's begin. The first sign you're winning. You no longer need them to understand. This is one of the most transformational shifts that can happen after narcissistic abuse. The day you stop craving validation from the very person who invalidated you. It doesn't happen immediately. In fact, for most survivors, there's a period of desperate attempts to be seen, heard, and understood. You send long messages. You explain your side. You hope they'll finally get it. But they never do. And then, one day, you stop trying. Not out of bitterness, not out of anger, but out of clarity. You realize that no explanation will ever be enough for someone who is committed to misunderstanding you. You see that their confusion isn't innocent, it's strategic. It keeps you small. It keeps you questioning. But now, you're done explaining your pain to the person who caused it. That shift, letting go of the need to be understood by them, is one of the absolute first signs you've stepped into your power. The second sign, their reactions no longer dictate your emotions. In a relationship with a narcissist, your emotional world gets hijacked. Their moods become your moods. Their approval becomes your self-worth. Their silence feels like punishment. Their anger feels like collapse. But when you begin to win, you take your emotional autonomy back. You stop checking your phone obsessively. You stop rehearsing conversations in your head. You stop walking on eggshells, even in memory. And slowly, something profound happens. Their mood no longer dictates yours. You can feel peaceful, even if they're chaotic. You can feel worthy, even if they're dismissive. You can feel joyful, even if they try to sabotage it. This is emotional independence. And it terrifies a narcissist because their power depended on your reactions. Without that, their manipulation falls flat. The third sign, you no longer take the bait. Narcissists don't just want attention, they want control. And one of their favorite tools is provocation. They'll poke at your insecurities. They'll bring up old wounds. They'll twist your words just to see if they can still trigger you. But when you're healing, you stop taking the bait. You hear the insult and stay calm. You see the manipulation and step back. You notice the triangulation and refuse to compete. You no longer feel the need to defend your truth because you know who you are. And that calm, grounded clarity, that's not just growth. That's proof. Proof that their chaos no longer lives inside you. The fourth sign, you start trusting your gut again. One of the most damaging effects of narcissistic abuse is self-doubt. You were gaslit, lied to, blamed. Over time, you stopped trusting your instincts. You overanalyzed every decision. You asked others what they thought instead of listening to your own voice. But when you begin to win, that voice returns. You start noticing red flags earlier. You no longer justify mistreatment. You make decisions that align with your values, not their demands. Your intuition, once silenced, becomes your guide. And every time you honor it, you rebuild the trust that was broken. The fifth sign, their smear campaign doesn't wound you. When a narcissist feels they're losing control, they often resort to character assassination. They tell mutual friends lies about you. They portray themselves as the victim. They twist the truth to preserve their ego. In the past, this may have devastated you. You felt exposed, hurt, desperate to defend yourself. But now, you realize you don't need to correct every lie. You understand that people who believe the narcissist never truly saw you. You feel sadness but not shame. You stand tall in your truth, knowing that your integrity speaks louder than their fiction. And that detachment from their smear campaign, that's victory. There's a moment in every survivor's journey where the landscape begins to shift internally first, and then outwardly. The narcissist may still be playing games, still trying to get reaction, still painting you as a villain in their distorted storyline. But somehow, you're no longer hooked. It's like a thread has finally snapped, not the thread that tethered you to love, but the one that kept you imprisoned by their illusion. And when that thread breaks, you begin to taste the air of your own liberation. We often think of winning against a narcissist as something dramatic or external, like watching them crumble or begging to get you back. But that's not it. The real victory is far quieter and far more profound. Let's continue uncovering the absolute first signs that you're winning often before you even realize it. You stop playing the role they assigned you. Every narcissist assigns roles. You might be the caregiver, the emotional shock absorber, the ideal partner, or the scapegoat. But all these roles serve one purpose: keeping you predictable, controllable, and contained. And at some point, you start shedding that role like a skin that never fit quite right. You stop being the fixer. You stop apologizing for things you didn't do. You stop showing up to emotional battles they created. Instead, you begin showing up for yourself. The mask they expected you to wear starts to fall away, and in its place, your real identity begins to reemerge. Not the version they preferred, but the version that was silenced. Your actual self. And that self doesn't play roles. That self lives truthfully. That self knows peace. You don't respond to hoovering the same way. One of the key signs you're winning is when a narcissist tries to re-enter your life and you feel absolutely nothing. No hope, no fear, no emotional spike, just neutrality. This might look like an unexpected text after weeks or months of silence, a sudden comment on your social media post, a random birthday message or nostalgic memory. In the past, these would have sent you spiraling, wondering if they'd change, questioning if you should respond, reliving old memories. But now, you pause, you breathe, you delete, and not out of spite, out of clarity, because you finally understand that their reach is not a compliment. It's a test, and you're no longer interested in failing it. Your body starts to relax again. Psychological trauma doesn't just live in the mind, it lives in the body. Survivors of narcissistic abuse often carry symptoms of chronic anxiety, hypervigilance, tight muscles, poor sleep, and a constant state of alertness. But when you start to win, you'll notice small, precious shifts in your body. You sleep through the night for the first time in weeks or months. You laugh and realize it wasn't forced. You eat without that familiar lump in your throat. You stop holding your breath all the time. These aren't minor changes. These are milestones. Because your body knows what your mind is still processing. You are safe now. And safety, for a survivor, is sacred. You begin to grieve the illusion, not the person. Another powerful sign you've won. You stop longing for them and start grieving what they represented. You realize you never truly knew them, not in the way you thought. What you loved was the version they showed you during the idealization phase. What you mourn is not a healthy relationship lost, but the future you imagined and the self you abandoned trying to make it real. This kind of grief is complex. It comes with sadness, but also relief. Because as painful as it is to let go of the illusion, it's the only way to reclaim your reality. You cry not because you missed a narcissist, but because you're finally telling yourself the truth. And truth is what heals. You stop needing closure from a narcissist. This might be the most liberating sign of all. You stop waiting for an apology. You stop hoping they'll explain. You stop looking for that final conversation that makes it all make sense. Instead, you realize you are the closure. Your healing journey is your closure. Your peace is your closure. Your growth is your closure. Because narcissists don't give closure, they give confusion. And when you stop asking the person who broke you to help you understand the break, you begin to rebuild from a place of power, not pain. You rediscover joy without guilt. One of the ways narcissists maintain control is by teaching you that joy should be earned. That rest is laziness. That happiness without their approval is selfish. But as you heal, you begin to laugh again, create again, breathe again, and you don't feel guilty for it. You no longer worry about how they would react. You stop filtering your joy through their insecurity. You reclaim your right to feel good for yourself. And with every moment of unfiltered, unapologetic joy, you break another link in the chain they try to wrap around your heart. You become boring to them. This one might not sound like a victory at first, but it is. When a narcissist no longer finds you interesting, it often means you stop providing the reactions, drama, validation, or chaos they need to feed their ego. You become grounded, centered, predictable in the healthiest way possible. And because they can no longer destabilize you, they start to drift. Let them, because you don't need to be exciting to be valuable. You don't need to be dramatic to be loved. You don't need to be reactive to be powerful. You're allowed to be boring in your peace, in your healing, in your self-possession. That's not dull. That's freedom. Sometimes the loudest sign of winning isn't loud at all. It's the stillness inside you when their name comes up and your chest doesn't tighten. It's the realization that you didn't check their social media all week and didn't even notice. It's the strange relief in knowing that you're no longer waiting for anything from them. Not an apology, not an explanation, not an ending. That's when you know you're truly free. When peace replaces obsession. When neutrality replaces longing. Let's continue uncovering what it really looks like to win against a narcissist, not through revenge or confrontation, but through internal transformation. You gain emotional sobriety. This is one of the most important, though often unspoken, signs of psychological recovery. Narcissistic relationships are intoxicating by design. The highs are euphoric, and the lows are soul-crushing. You become addicted to cycles of chaos, to the rare moments of affection, to the feeling of being chosen one day and discarded the next. It's not your fault. The brain reacts to trauma bonds the way it reacts to addictive substances, flooding with cortisol, adrenaline, dopamine. That's why detaching feels like withdrawal. But when you begin to win, that chemical dependency starts to fade. You stop craving intensity. You start craving peace. You no longer seek roller coasters. You seek calm, stability, quiet joy. And that shift from chaos to calm is emotional sobriety. It means your nervous system is healing. And that's a milestone most people overlook. But it's massive. You reclaim your narrative. One of the most psychologically painful aspects of narcissistic abuse is narrative hijacking. They made you doubt what really happened. They painted you as unstable. They redefined your reactions as a problem. They told others a version of your story so skewed that even you began to question your truth. But as you recover, your clarity returns. You stop doubting the timeline. You stop apologizing for your emotions. You stop accepting their version of who you are. You remember what actually happened, not the manipulated version, but the truth. You begin to tell your story, even if only to yourself, and each time you do, it feels stronger, truer, more grounded. That's not just healing. That's reclamation. That's power. You see their tactics clearly and feel nothing. Another powerful sign you've won. You begin to see their patterns not as personal attacks, but as predictable strategies. The gaslighting, the love bombing, the triangulation, it all starts to look repetitive, unoriginal, tired. You no longer internalize their behavior as a reflection of your worth. Instead, you see it for what it is, a coping mechanism, a survival strategy, a symptom of their unresolved shame. This doesn't mean you excuse it. It means you're no longer enmeshed in it. You stop thinking, why are they doing this to me? And start thinking, of course they're doing this. It's what they do. That psychological detachment, that's the death of their power over you. Your silence speaks louder than your arguments ever did. Early in the relationship, you probably fought to be understood. You explained. You cried. You yelled. You tried to make them see the pain they caused. And every time, it felt like screaming into a void. But now, you no longer need the final word. You no longer chase clarity. You let them misinterpret you, mislabel you, misunderstand you. Because silence, real, grounded, healed silence is louder than any argument. It's not cold. It's not vengeful. It's sacred. It's the sound of someone who has nothing left to prove. You stop wondering if they're thinking about you. This one stings at first, but it's a sign of deep healing. In the aftermath of narcissistic abuse, it's common to obsess over whether they miss you, whether they regret it, whether they're watching from the sidelines. But when you've truly begun to win, you stop asking those questions not because you got an answer, but because you outgrew the need for one. You're not waiting for karma. You're not hoping they suffer. You're not imagining your comeback moment, because your focus has shifted entirely. Back to you, back to your life, your healing, your relationships, your peace. And the narcissist, they become background noise, a fading echo in a life you're no longer giving them access to. So here you are. You've walked through confusion. You've lived the chaos. You've doubted yourself more times than you can count. And yet you're still here, healing, growing, reclaiming everything they tried to steal. You might not have realized it yet. You might not have felt the full weight of your victory. But make no mistake, you are winning. Let's talk about the final, often overlooked signs that you've turned the page and stepped out of their story for good. You stop measuring your healing by their behavior. In the beginning, healing feels like a reaction. I'm doing better because they haven't hoovered. Or, I feel worse because they posted something new. We all start there. It's normal. But there comes a moment quiet, unannounced, when you stop using them as your emotional barometer. Your peace is no longer tied to their silence. Your confidence is no longer tied to their regret. Your joy is no longer filtered through their absence. You wake up and realize they could vanish completely or reappear tomorrow. And either way, I'm okay. That's not indifference. That's sovereignty. You feel compassion without reconnection. This one is nuanced. With time, some survivors find themselves feeling sadness for the narcissist, not from longing, but from perspective. You begin to see that behind the bravado, the cruelty, the manipulation, was a deeply fragmented person. You don't pity them. You don't romanticize the pain. You just see it, without attachment, without obligation, without needing to re-engage. It's not an invitation back into the cycle. It's evidence that you've stepped out of it. Compassion without contact, clarity without re-entry, forgiveness without reconciliation. It means your heart is healing without being pulled back into danger. You become someone they can't reach anymore. Not because you blocked them on every platform, though you probably did, but because you've changed so profoundly, so thoroughly, that the version of you they once fed on simply doesn't exist anymore. You are no longer supply. You are no longer reactive. You are no longer accessible through shame or guilt or nostalgia. They might try. They might circle back. They might test the waters. But what they find is a door that no longer opens, a heart that no longer answers, a soul that has returned home to itself and is no longer on the market for emotional theft. You begin to create a life that has nothing to do with them. This may be the most beautiful sign of all. You start doing things just for you, not to prove anything. not to send a message, not to post online in hopes they'll see it. You take that class. You move cities. You make new friends. You heal your body. You try new hobbies. You reawaken dreams that have been sleeping in you for years. And for the first time in what feels like forever, your life isn't a reaction to what happened. It's a reflection of who you are. That's the real win. Not just escaping the narcissist, but becoming someone they never had the power to destroy in the first place. The conclusion: you've already won more than you know. Maybe you're not all the way through the tunnel yet. Maybe you still flinch at certain memories. Maybe some part of you still aches when their name comes up. That's okay. Healing is not linear. Victory is not perfection. You don't need to be completely unaffected to be free. You just need to be moving forward. And if you've seen yourself in the signs we've talked about today, even one or two of them take this as your confirmation. You're not stuck. You're not broken. You're not losing. You are healing. You are evolving. You are winning in the most important way possible by becoming more you than you've ever been. The narcissist may never admit it. They may never apologize. They may never acknowledge your strength. But that's not the point. You know, and that's enough. Thank you for watching. If this message spoke to your heart, share it with someone who's walking the same road. Subscribe for more insight from the heart of a clinical psychologist who believes deeply in your recovery and your rebirth. Leave a comment below your story. Might be the light someone else needs tonight. And remember, you're not behind. You're not too late. You're not alone. You're winning. And you're just getting started. Stay grounded. Stay brave. Stay free.